Another week of basketball has come and gone. Let's go talk about it. Alrighty, y'all, we're back with last week in the NBA. This is a series where, look, we don't all have all the time in the world to watch NBA games like maybe I do. Even I don't have all the time in the world, but I like to give a little weekly recap to be like, hey, here's everything that happened in the league last week. And so what I've done is I've built this spreadsheet. Those of you that have been watching the series know, it's to kind of help us track everything that's going on in the NBA. We've got highlights from this last week to talk about. We've got news and everything, who stood out in the week. We've got rookie reports, cup standings updates, everything that you could possibly need to get yourself recapped. But anyway, let's start jumping into things. I feel like this is the first week in the league where we're starting to see things kind of come back to average. And there's a law in mathematics, right, that everything kind of comes back to the mean or the average of things. And I feel like we're starting to see that with certain teams. And when we go over the standings later, we're going to talk about how like the Milwaukee Bucks are getting better, right? And there's certain teams that are starting to fall back off and stuff. And so I'm not surprised to see some of this, but there are certain teams that haven't quite figured it out yet, and we're going to need to talk about them as well. And I'm looking at you, Minnesota, to be like, hey, what the hell's going on here? But if we can start with one of those teams that's starting to figure things out, let's start with Giannis Antetokounmpo here. These are his week stats right here. It was just one game, but 42 points, 11 rebounds, 12 rebounds, 11 assists in that game. Absolutely crazy. 62.5% from the field in that game. No steals, just one block. But if we can go look at Giannis's stats for the season, it's been pretty much what we expected, right? Giannis is playing at an MVP level as per usual. I believe he leads the league in scoring right now at 33 points per game, 12 rebounds, 6.5 assists. It hasn't been him and Dame's fault. I mean, we can take a look at Dame as well for this week, but Damian Lillard right there. In the two games that he played in this week, we saw 31 points, 11 assists. He's shooting like crazy from the field right now, and he's starting to pick those percentages back up a little bit. He is shooting like slightly above league average from the field. Or from the behind the arc, but the field goal percentage has been a little bit wonky this season. And look, those two are trying to do a lot for this team. Giannis and him, they've been playing off each other a lot more this season, and so that's been really, really cool to see. When I think about the Milwaukee Bucks, though, they have such a talented roster and around some of those other guys, and we'll talk about the rest of them later, but it's been really cool to see Giannis kind of fall into that MVP form and really show everything that he can do, because I feel like we forget how good this guy is sometimes. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he's already won a championship or something like that, and we always want to go talk about the next big thing now, but this is still a contending team, in my opinion, when you have two players that are this good on your basketball team. So I hope that the Milwaukee Bucks keep finding a way to like shoot upwards, and these two are going to be the reason why it happens if it does. The next player I want to highlight from this last week is Cam Thomas here. Cam Thomas only played in 2 games this week due to an injury, but he had 28.5 points per game, 2.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, right? He shot well from the field. Awesome. That's what Cam Thomas does. Cam Thomas, what he doesn't do very well is affect winning, and unfortunately, he's not healthy anymore. The reports were coming out that the team was looking to trade Cam Thomas, right? And what do we know about him? Dude gets buckets, right? That's about it. That's about all he does on the floor. And now he does it at an extremely high level. I mean, we can take a look at Cam Thomas's stats for the season. I mean, you got 25 points per game, right? You got nothing much else going on, but he's above average from 3. That's cool, right? This dude hits really, really tough shots. He can create from anywhere. You really have to put like unique defenses out to actually try and stop this guy. It's an incredibly like gifted ability that he has to stay balanced while falling away from all these different angles and hit these shots. But it doesn't really help teams win basketball games. And that's why they're like, hey, we've got this young talent. We're not going anywhere anytime soon anyway. We have to pay this guy at the end of the year. It doesn't really help us win basketball games. He's probably not part of the long-term future anyway. It's not like they're just going to give him away. But look, there's a need for a guy like this somewhere on some team. I don't personally know who it is. We made a whole video on it, and I think we found a couple interesting options, but at the end of the day, Cam Thomas is hurt for the foreseeable future, and that's unfortunate, right? We didn't want to see that, and he just is an entertaining player to watch at the end of the day, so I'll be really curious to see where Cam Thomas ends up, if he's sticking around in Brooklyn, if he gets an extension, how much do you even want to pay him? Because I saw a lot of Nets fans in the comments being like, hey, well, like, this is the first, like, homegrown talent we've had in a while, and it's like, I know y'all are attached to that. I promise you guys, this isn't the type of player that you like build around and like actually win games with. So are you wanting to pay this guy like $30 million a year, like $35 million? Because that's what he's going to ask for, right? He's going to ask for a good chunk of change. So You tell me what you want to do at the end of the day. I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. By the way, go like, subscribe, comment, do all those things. I respond to every single comment, meaning if you leave one, I will respond to it. And yeah, leave me some of those comments. I like to respond to those. Next guy I want to highlight here is Jason Tatum from this last week. Now, look, I think we all realize Jason Tatum's also having like an MVP level season. The Celtics are really, really good. They're on another little winning streak right now. Kristaps Porzingis just came back, which is really, really cool for them. It's been an okay start for him so far. I mean, 18.7 rebounds is obviously awesome. He's shooting well from the field. He looks pretty immobile right now, but that's fine. He's just getting back into it. But Jason Tatum, I feel like, is really embracing is like Kobe shit right now. Kobe used to always say, like, look, even if you can't score the most in every game, like, go get every rebound you can because you can control that. So when you see in this last week in 3 games, 27 points, 10 rebounds per game, 4 assists, a steal and a block, very efficient from the field, great plus minus. I mean, the team is good, right? So that's always going to be the case. But Jason Tatum has just been, he's been on one this season. You look at the overall stats for the year, 28, 29 points, 6 assists, 8.5 rebounds, getting a steal and a half per game, which is pretty crazy to see. Shooting well from 3, maybe not as well from the field. Honestly, I noticed that with a lot of people this year. I don't know if it's because we have like more like talented shot blockers in the NBA than ever before or something like that, but it's just kind of something I've realized that field goal percentage generally is down right now in comparison to 3-point field goal percentage. But nonetheless, Jason Tatum does everything that the Celtics need him to do. He's just continuing to kind of build on this season and kind of lead this team. It feels like in the East at this point, it's kind of just like, okay, who's gonna beat the Celtics? You have to build your team to beat the Celtics at this point. It's kind of like what the Warriors have, and I know that the Celtics have won one championship, but like they've been in the Eastern Conference Finals like every damn season, and they made it to the finals a couple times. It just so happens that they lost to like Western Conference teams, or like the Miami Heat were doing their thing for that little bit there, and they were just willing themselves to victory. But it feels like if you're in the East and you're one of those teams that's trying to build up and become a contending team, you have to figure out how to beat the Celtics, because look, are Drew and like Porzingis and them going to be around for forever? No, but look, like Jaylen Brown's still going to be there for a while too. Like these two aren't going anywhere. They're in the prime of their careers. They're going to keep bringing these two back at the end of the day, and they're going to find more players to put around these guys for a long, long time. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see how teams like construct themselves to try to guard 2 elite wings like this. It's hard enough to guard one when you have 2. I don't know, man. It gets hard. Last person I want to highlight in particular this week for their performance is Tyrese Haliburton. In 4 games, we had 25.5 points, 9 assists, about 4 rebounds, got over a steal and a half a game, shot really, really well from the field. So Haliburton's been in a lot of conversations this year. A lot of people calling him overrated. You guys are morons if you think this guy's overrated. He's super, super talented. Now, if you think that some people think that he's like a top 3-point guard in the NBA, then yeah, I'll disagree with that, obviously. But Tyrese Haliburton, one of the best players we have in the NBA, had a rough start to the season. Honestly, like, judging by the way he moved, and I know there's a lot of rumors that he was going through some back problems or something, I would honestly believe that just from watching his level of aggression. There's not as much burst or whatever, which is weird because he was playing throughout the off season, so it's not like he's not in shape or something like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was kind of ailing a little bit, but we're starting to see Haliburton pick things back up. Now, the Pacers themselves still aren't in a great situation. I mean, you got guys like Benedict Mathurin, who's having like a really good season. We know he's a good scorer. Everything else is a little bit questionable with him at the very moment. But you look at Pascal Siakam. Pascal is having a really, really good season again. That's awesome. We go over to Miles Turner here. Miles Turner still kind of doing his 3-and-D center impersonation. That's who he is. But you've got players on the Pacers that can be successful, right? This is pretty much the exact same team that they had last year that had a lot of success, right? So with Haliburton kind of starting to figure things out, hopefully, because I mean, we can take a look at Haliburton's stats for the season, right? Obviously has not been very good. Really poor field goal percentage, below average from 3, below a lot of statistics that we would expect to see with him. He's been a -3 overall in the season. Pacers haven't been that good. It seems like he's starting to pick things up a little bit now, so I'll be curious to see if this is sustainable. And I think this is a good reminder for us, like, look, don't judge people after how many games has he played? So you guys would have been judging him after like 15 games. Just relax, all right? There's ebbs and flows to every single thing, and you never know if people are hurt or things like that. So try to look past those things and ask why. But we'll see. We'll see if Haliburton can keep it up. All right, let's take a look around the association. So I've actually gone and added some things to these categories here. So these are the statistical leaders throughout the NBA. This is based off the entire year. I've gone and added some qualifiers to this. So now if I change this number here, this basically says how many games people have to have played to actually qualify in this. Otherwise, we get some weird some weird numbers in there, right? Like people have to have played a certain amount at this point. That's kind of how I feel. We also have a shots qualifying thing here. So this first number here is field goal percentage. The second one is 3-point attempts. So basically what I can do here is be like, okay, I feel like a good shots to qualify to fall into the top 5 for field goal percentage is 5. I feel like you have to have taken at least 5 shots per game because let's be honest, JT Thor shouldn't be number 1. He's going to fall off, right? And somebody else might have as well. But basically now all of these guys take at least 5 shots a game. So I feel like that's probably a good number. And for shots 3 to qualify, JT Thor again probably shouldn't be in that. I feel like you have to take at least 3 threes a game. Now we get a much more interesting number to look at, right? In terms of like, okay, who are the 3-point shot leaders, but we're also going to throw a games to qualify on here. What are we? We're about 20 games into the season, so I'm going to say you have to have played in like 9-ish. I feel like that's appropriate. Now I like these stats, right? Now I feel pretty good about this. You'll see these things also change as well. There's little formulas in here, but if we can zoom in on like some of these things here to take a look at them, these are statistical leaders after we've filtered it down a little bit. So assists per game, Trae Young, clear leader this year. It feels like he's not being as aggressive scoring-wise this year. It feels like he's trying harder to like distribute the ball more than ever. Like he's not taking quite as many shots. I see games where he doesn't like fall into the 20-point range and he's not taking a ton of shot attempts. So maybe an effort by him. I'd still like to see more off-ball movement, but is what it is. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is going to fall into like all of these categories. Hell, I'll even just pull him up on here so that we can highlight everything that he falls into. Jokic is MVP, right? There's just no question this dude's MVP. So 10.5 assists out of him. Awesome. LeBron playing more of a point guard type role since they benched like Russell and everything. He's really been running the offense. It's not a surprise. JJ Redick's got them running a very fine-tuned system that LeBron understands really well, so good to see there. Ja Morant surprisingly finding himself in here. We never really saw that as a huge part of his game before, but that's kind of developing. And then Cade Cunningham, 9 assists a game. Pretty cool to see. I think Cade Cunningham is an awesome basketball player. He was hurt for a little bit there again, but I don't know. The Pistons have a great thing going there, and we'll actually talk about them later in the video because they're in a kind of interesting spot. But yeah, no, Cade Cunningham really moving the rock around this year. Going over to like rebounds, it's Jokic, it's Sabonis, Cat obviously having a great season, Zubac as well. We find Giannis in there. No surprise to see these guys towards the top. We go to steals, Dyson Daniel still running away with this one, especially in like the tip passes department. Just awesome to see from Dyson Daniels. We did a video on Jalen. I can't talk today. Why can't I talk? It's Sunday, so just leave me be on it. Jalen Williams, we did a video on him last week. I think we saw a lot of interesting things on there, but one of the things that really stood out is that Jalen Williams, in terms of team, like on-off numbers, is like really bad. So for whatever reason, like the team is still like winning games when he's out on the court. Like the Thunder are really good, but for whatever reason with him in particular, the team is substantially worse when he's on the court. So kind of an interesting thing to watch. I'm curious to hear if you guys have any ideas behind that. Tari Eason getting himself involved, which is pretty crazy considering he comes off the bench and doesn't play a ton of minutes, so that's really impressive. Tyrese Maxey, awesome. Franz Wagner, yep, they've been logging him on minutes, man, so good for Franz there. Blocks per game, Wemby, not surprised. Walker, Chet Holmgren, Brook Lopez, and then Donovan Clingan, who I believe he's hurt right now as well, so we have a couple of the big men injured right now, but these are the names we expect to see, right? Totally expect it. Then field goal percentage, Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. I get the feeling that these two are just going to stick around here for the Mavericks. It's awesome to see. Walker Kessler, been a pretty productive player for them overall this season. We take a look at Walker Kessler's numbers, like 70% from the field, 10 points per game, 10 rebounds. That's pretty awesome. Walker Kessler, nice basketball player. We got Jared Allen here, not a surprise. Jalen Duren, not a surprise to see him there as well. Now we got the 3-point leaders. Now that we've filtered it down to, hey, you got to play in at least 9 games. You got to shoot at least 3 threes a game. These are guys taking 3-pointers, right? We got Taurean Prince, who's had a pretty good season for Milwaukee right now. He's a big reason why they're having a little bit more increased success. We can take a look at like Taurean, oops, I can't type today either. Take a look at Taurean Prince's numbers this season, about 9 points a game, 5 rebounds, and you have to remember, you're like, oh, 9 points a game. You got Giannis and Dame on the team. They're scoring most of the points and shooting 54% from 3. Pretty nuts. So you got Taurean Prince there. You got Jokic, who that's insane. That's just insane what he's doing right now. He's just throwing that ball up there. It's going in every single time. Really cool to see. Ty Jerome, we did a whole video on like underrated players in the NBA. He was towards the top of the list for us. He's having a phenomenal season for Cleveland. So if we look at Ty Jerome's numbers, 12 points a game, not doing a ton else. He's been very nice defensively, but stupid efficient. Obviously, coming out of Virginia, he was a really interesting player that people were like, is it going to translate to the NBA? Hey, when these guys find a situation that works for them and a system that is kind of applicable to their skill set, things start to come around. So we'll see if Ty can keep it up. Josh Green, another one shooting the shit out of the basketball, and Norman Powell just overall having a phenomenal season, shooting at about 50% from the field, 48% from three on 24 points or 23 points per game. Pretty crazy, right? Pretty crazy with Norm Powell. He would have been an interesting trade candidate at some point this year, and I wonder if they'll still capitalize on that. The Clippers are in this odd spot now where it's like, okay, do we really think this team's going to do anything come playoff time? Like, if Kawhi comes back, how good are they actually? Or do they sell high on a lot of their valuable assets right now, like a Norm Powell or like a Derrick Jones Jr. over here? Or maybe it's a Chris Dunn, who's had an incredible defensive season, right? I'm very curious. I'm very curious to see what they do. But anyway, let's move on to news and highlights. All right, y'all. First highlight here. We got Jaden Ivey. 10 seconds left against the Pistons. Or against the Raptors, tie game. Where are we going? Where are we going? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go to work. Let's go to work on Oche. Give me those. I love a good game winner like that where you just kind of take them yourself. I don't know how I feel about these Pistons jerseys, but hey, tough ass finish. No Cade Cunningham in that game. Do it yourself. Jaden has had a great season, man. Raptors have had an interesting season in and of itself, but Jaden Ivey, what a shot there. Can we rewind and kind of see this? Let's see. Jaden Ivey taking Oche to work right here. He gets like no help at all on it, and he's just, hey, that's what happens, man. That's what happens. That's probably the one dude you wanted to guard somehow if you were the Raptors, right? You were probably okay with, well, maybe not Beasley. You probably didn't want Beasley getting a shot off, but overall, man, he took him, and he made a tough shot, so shout out the Pistons, man. All right, y'all, next one, we finally got some Ja Morant highlights. Scottie Pippen bringing up the court. He's had a phenomenal, get out the way! Oh, I love the flex afterwards. I love the flex. Oh, my God. He just flies. How does he do that? Can I see this one more time, please? Please. Nice little dump off here. Get out of the way. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, that's the thing. It's how quickly he elevates. Like, oh my goodness. I had a little experience in college with oh wait, we got to see this really quick. Oh, yeah. No, that's the reaction. I had a little experience with Ja Morant in college, and yeah, not something I choose to talk about. But anyway, let's move on. All right, y'all. Next thing we're going to talk about is a guy by the name of Elfrid Payton, and oh good, we do have a picture. He's not even in the actual team uniform. Elfrid Payton plays for the Pelicans, if you're not familiar, and if you're too young to remember, Elfrid Payton was a former lottery pick by the Orlando Magic. Kind of reminds me of Anthony Black, who they have nowadays, like bigger point guard, very pass oriented, good defender, things like that. Anthony Black at this point is a little bit better of like a 3-point shooter, or at least he was at points. He's apparently fallen off a decent amount now. I actually don't even have a picture for Anthony Black. I'll fix that after. Okay, there it is. Nope, just took a second to load, but I could have sworn Anthony Black's 3-point shooting numbers were a little bit better. It must have fallen off in like the past couple weeks or something like that, but going back to Elfrid Payton, he was picked up by the Pelicans this last week, basically off the street, got thrown into the starting lineup right away, and he had a game with 21 assists. That's why his stats look so crazy for just like 5 games being played. 8 points, 8 assists, five-ish rebounds, a steal and a half. Like, Elfrid Payton's a good defensive player and everything. He's never been a good shooter, as you can tell here, but if there was one thing he did, he saw the floor well, right? He understood his teammates, played good defense, played hard every single game, and so it's just cool to see that there's a lot of players that aren't in the NBA right now that you can throw them on and they can be impactful NBA players. It's like it's a nice reminder about things, and certain teams give up on players at a certain point, and I'm not saying Elfrid Payton's going to win or lose them games in New Orleans, but it's good to know that there's like a lot of other talented basketball players out there that aren't in the NBA. I just think that's a nice reminder for us. But the next thing we're going to talk about is the Minnesota Timberwolves, and I'll probably do a video on this. Maybe, we'll see at some point, but Anthony Edwards has made it pretty clear after some games this week that he is pretty frustrated with his teammates. I'm going to pull up Anthony Edwards here just to take a look at it. I mean, we also see Anthony Edwards in our highlights of the week right here. I mean, he was 13th in scoring this last week. But the Timberwolves haven't been so great this year. I don't think they're even in the play-in right now. They're not winning a ton of basketball games. Obviously, they made the Cat trade in the offseason. And one of the things I talked about at that point is I'm like, hey, this signals to the whole organization that you're not for real about winning, right? And not only that, you're making Anthony Edwards' life incredibly difficult by getting rid of Cat, because you already had a really bad offensive system last year, and now you got rid of the only thing that made Ant's job a little bit easier in Karl-Anthony Towns, right? The spacing that he brought, the ability to play off of Ant, he was a good teammate. Like, all of those things were very, very important to the team. And then he got rid of Cat for business reasons, right? We all understand why they did it business-wise, but I was one of the people saying, I don't know, man, I would have kept him. Like, I feel like this organization has had no success ever, really, in their history. You finally had a little bit of success, and then you went and traded that guy that was helping bring some success to the team. You've got a young budding superstar in Anthony Edwards, and now you're getting rid of him and saying, okay, yeah, that happened, but we don't actually care that happened. So what did you do? You went in and brought Mr. Julius Randle, who, is putting up very respectable numbers. They're very good numbers: 21 points, 4 assists, 7 rebounds. The field goal for the three-point shooting has fallen off a cliff, but like, I think any of us that are actually watching these games knows it's not good, right? Julius Randle looks like Julius Randle normally does. He looks very uninterested defensively when he plays. It's basically just him getting the ball, pounding the shit out of it, like going to town and kind of forcing up shots with 2 people on him. Rudy Gobert has not been very happy to play with Julius Randle. And look, Rudy Gobert is a dude that's easily frustrated. He doesn't always get along with his teammates, right? And so, look, Rudy can't do much offensively either, and they play him a ton, which is really interesting for me. Like, they're playing him a ton of minutes right now, and like, look, Rudy's still awesome defensively and everything, but it's kind of weird to me when you have a guy like Naz Reid and stuff like that Rudy's getting this many minutes and you struggled this much offensively as a team. I don't know. I feel like there's some weird things going on there that they need to consider rotation-wise, but Ant is very frustrated with having to manage guys like Rudy and Julius Randle, right? And he's got other guys on his team that just aren't really contributing right now. So it's like, okay, what do you do in this situation? To me, I don't know. Julius Randle's got a player option at the end of this year, and he could very well come back, or you just let him go and you play Nas more minutes or something. But anyway, you've got a player that's frustrated now, and your star player, he's just started his like 5-year contract or whatever, but he doesn't want to have to wait around for this stuff. So this is, I don't know, I think this is poor management by the Timberwolves by making a trade like that. Like I said, I get why they did it. I just think these are the repercussions that you see, because I don't think this team's going to get a ton better. I think they're considerably worse without Cat on the team. I mean, they just are right now, right? And I don't know. I don't know how you make this team work. It's so bad to watch them offensively right now. And like, Randall's just playing worse defensively than Cat did, which is something to say. Cat's obviously better when he's not playing center defensively, but I don't know. It looks rough with Randle out there. There's no scheme, and it's hurting the other players on the team as well. You look at Dante DiVincenzo. He can't find any space on the court. Like, they lock onto him as soon as he gets on. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's been one of the few that's actually been kind of like putting together a solid season, so good for him. He probably needs to play more than he even has at this point. Jaden McDaniels has just been kind of a nothing for them this year. His contract is looking rough at this point. Like, defensively, he's still fine, but is what it is. Mike Conley can't really create for himself at this point, so he's struggling to find any space to operate. Like, it doesn't work. Like, this team does not work. It's gross to see. And I'm being an advocate right now. Naz Reid needs to play more minutes. That's for damn sure. You got to get him on the court more than some of these other guys. Like, I think he's the best of like both worlds between Randle and Gobert and everything. Play him more. I also think you got to get the rookies involved a little bit more. Look, when you're struggling this much offensively, I'd rather just get some of these young guys on the court that, look, are they the most complete players in the world? Is Rob Dillingham a complete player? No, he's had some good games, and I know some of you will say that, but he's pretty bad defensively, right? But you need people that can get you easy buckets right now, make Ant's life a little bit easier. I think Dillingham would actually help that, and you got to get Terrence Shannon Jr. back on the court at some point. So, I don't know. I feel like those two should be in the game in some way or capacity. I don't know what you do. Jaden McDaniels doesn't need to be on the court very much at this point. He just doesn't. Like, there's not as much of an impact here. Figure out if Terrence Shannon Jr. can replace him in some capacity, because it's now a couple years in a row that we've seen where it's not quite coming together for this guy. So, I don't know. I don't know, but it's got to be really frustrating for Ant, man. I feel for him. It's a situation we're going to have to monitor. But anyway, let's go watch at least one more highlight. All right, y'all got to get some game volume for this one. Jaylen Brown against my Chicago Bulls in a cup game. I don't like showing these things, but, we got to see him every once in a while. Going to the left, that's his dangerous side. Oh, no. I appreciate Jalen Smith trying, man. I really do, but it's just, oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Do I want to slow it down? I will. Let's see it. Oh man, Jaylen Brown, is he the best in-game dunker in the NBA? I feel like he is, because I don't know, he just doesn't seem to fear anybody. Shout out Jaylen Brown. We're actually going to use that Jaylen Brown dunk to translate to the next thing in the video, which is the Bulls are trying to blow things up. They've made it very, very clear that, look, they're trying to blow this team up. It's not going anywhere. It's a complete I don't know. It's gross to watch at the end of the day. And so what is going to be interesting is I'm probably going to do a video about it at some point this week, talking about what can the Bulls actually do to tear down this team, right? Because they've got interesting players. We can start off with Zach LaVine here. We all know Zach LaVine, amazing offensive player, right? 22 points per game on a team that can't really do much to create for him. 4 assists, 4.5 rebounds. He's really, really efficient. Awesome, right? You've got a really elite player. Costs a lot of money, though. So can Zach LaVine help a lot of basketball teams? Yes, but it's very, very risky, because if it doesn't work, he's going to lock you into second aprons and stuff like that. And then this is the team that you're stuck with. And how many teams need another scoring guard on their team? And well, those are a little more common than scoring forwards, right? So it is hard to find a logistical spot for him. But look, teams are probably interested. It's just, what do they have to pay to get him? What happens afterwards? Do they need to make other moves first to make sure they can take on LaVine and they feel really good about the team going forward? Hard to say, because this is a guy that hasn't ever really been in part of the playoffs and had a lot of success or anything like that, so it's a lot to bank on. You also have guys like Nikola Vucevic, who could be interesting to teams, because look, we all know how valuable centers are right now. He's having a really, really good season. 20 and 10, very uncommon to see that, right? Stupid efficient from everywhere. 58% from the field, 47% from three. Great, that's awesome, right? This is a very good basketball player, not as expensive either, so I feel like there's going to be much more interest for Vucevic, ironically, just because teams need guys like this, but who's actually going to pull the trigger on it? We don't know. Kobe White, probably another name that could be brought up. 18 points per game, shoots it well from three, turns the ball over a bit too much, so kind of more of just like a scoring guard. I don't know. I don't know what kind of team is looking for a Kobe White, because is he your franchise point guard? Probably not. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch. They've made it pretty clear. I can't even pull Patrick Williams up because he hasn't played this season, but Patrick Williams is the guy they're willing to trade, because they just gave him the extension. So, and I thought that extension was dumb. It's just, the Bulls, man, they're just so mismanaged on a lot of things, but what are you going to do? Do they trade a guy like a Jalen Smith or something, because maybe you can actually go get something for him? I mean, he's a big that can block shots and hit some threes and stuff. I don't know. Maybe Ayo Dosunmu would be a guy that's probably interesting to people. The 3-point field goal shot is down right now. Traditionally, it is a lot higher. I'd like to think that if he's playing with some other people that fit his position a little bit more, maybe things get better. I don't know. But moving on to the next thing, the Brooklyn Nets also trying to blow things up. They've also been like, hey, you can call us as well. We would also like to get rid of all of our players. We anticipated that, right? We knew that they were going to have a fire sale at some point. They've got enough sample size now to be like, okay, let's start to have those conversations. The first name that always comes up is Dorian Finney-Smith, 3-and-D wing, very interesting player that you can plug into probably any team, and he's going to help them in some capacity, right? Just because, he can step out and hit. He's a smart basketball player. He can guard other wings. We talked about the Celtics. You got to be able to beat the Celtics at some point, so you need guys that can guard those wings. He's at least an option for them. Dennis Schroeder, who I said during the offseason is a guy that a lot of people should go for. 19 points per game this season, 6 assists, creates all of his own offense and everything, plays really good defense. I really like Dennis Schroeder. He's really hitting from three this season. He's actually been a positive for them on a bad Brooklyn Nets team. So really elite basketball player that you can add to your team. Cameron Johnson. I'd be surprised if Cam Johnson got moved. He just feels like the type of guy that you keep on the team for when they go and they draft some top 3 pick or something like that, so you at least have him on the squad. I don't know if teams would be still interested in Nick Claxton. He's had kind of a weird season overall where he hasn't gotten a ton of consistent burn or anything, so I'm not quite sure there. We already talked about Cam Thomas and how he could be moved at some point, but the Nets have a lot of really interesting role players that you could go out and get. They do have Bojan on the team. He hasn't suited up at all this season, but that is another name that I'm sure people would be at least hey, how healthy is he? What's actually going on with this guy, right? So I'll be very curious to see what the Brooklyn Nets end up doing. Next thing to talk about is Brandon Ingram. Let's pull up Brandon Ingram here. So We're all familiar with BI, aka Uncle Durag. 23 points per game, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. This is a good basketball player, right? Just above league average from 3, a little bit below league average from the field. The Pelicans have had a disastrous season. Everybody's hurt. It doesn't look pretty. Brandon Ingram just recently got rid of his agent, and they haven't been able to come to a contract extension on him. This is the last year of his deal, and, the Pelicans have a decision to make, right? It's kind of like the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope thing from this last summer. It's like, okay, you bring this guy back, and now you're kind of locked into this core again that we have not gotten to see what they can actually do because none of them stay healthy, right? It's really, really unfortunate because this is a really talented group. It's just, if they're not ever going to be on the court together, it doesn't matter, right? It's kind of like the Clippers as well from a couple years ago. So they can't come to a contract extension because they don't want to give him a ton because he's not like that elite of a player. He's kind of that borderline player. They don't want to Zach LaVine themselves, right? Where Zach LaVine got like a big ass contract. They're about the same level of player, I would say. Like, maybe throw like a Jared Allen into that conversation as well, something like that. Like those are kind of like borderline all-star players every single season, right? Where, someone could probably make a case, but maybe not every single season. So how much do you want to pay Brandon Ingram, right? And again, we don't even know because it's not like this team's gone on a deep run or anything. Or do you kind of start to tear this thing down in some capacity and be like, this core just doesn't work? Zion clearly doesn't want to be here. BI isn't healthy enough. Like DeJounte Murray, we went and got him. He hasn't been healthy already this season. Do we just keep Herb Jones and Trey Murphy or something? I don't know. I'm very, very curious to see what ends up happening with that, but it doesn't seem like an extension is going to happen. So what do? Do they trade Brandon Ingram? Who could even take on Brandon Ingram? It's a similar conversation to Zach LaVine, right? Somebody's going to need to pay him, right? And then you're locking yourself into what you have, but this is a really good basketball player at the end of the day, and there's not many guys that can do what he can do, so going to be interesting. Next thing here, we don't have a ton of highlights to go over this week, but the Milwaukee Bucks have won 6 games in a row. We already talked about that a bit with Giannis and Damian Lillard. They've been awesome. There's certain guys that are starting to come back to life a little bit. One of those being Gary Trent, who's now crept himself back over league average from 3. The field goal percentage is still pretty rough, but if you look at the stats from just like the past 3 weeks, he looks pretty solid overall. So awesome to see, right? Awesome to see from him. Brook Lopez has been like a really consistent force for them this whole season. Good to see from him. AJ Green, he's been a solid force for them this whole season. I'm really glad that they've been starting Andre Jackson Jr. this year. He's just one of those dudes that's like actually like hustling for them on defense. Do I not have a picture of Andre Jackson Jr.? Whatever, I'll go find that later. But while he's not contributing a lot like stat-wise, like he's hustling, getting deflections, things like that, just making it easier for Dame and Giannis to succeed. I feel like he's been a really underrated part of things, but yeah, shout out to them. And then on the opposite end of things, the Washington Wizards absolutely suck. The Washington Wizards just piss me off as an organization. I don't know how anybody is ever going to develop under them. They do have Malcolm Brogdon back now, which is great. I actually feel like he's been playing pretty solid, but like I've watched quite a bit of Wizards film recently, and I'm not happy to say it. I have 2 friends that play for the team, and so I like to watch them play when I can. But they just run nothing. They just literally do. Like, we've got Brogdon just like isoing people at this point and just trying to take them to the rim and stuff like that. And like, Brogdon's a good basketball player. It's just like, man, like you got guys like Jordan Poole's actually looked not as bad this season in my opinion. Like, there's times where he takes bad looks, but I don't think he's been like horrible all said and done. It's just like everything else on the team looks disastrous. Kyle Kuzma looks bad. He doesn't look like he has any idea where he is on the court at this point, and I mean the stats kind of reflect that he is having a really inefficient season, and that's affecting the rookies, who we'll talk about in a bit. But it's just unfortunate that that's kind of where they've all fallen in this. I mean, guys like Corey Kispert can't get going. He's shooting poorly. You got young guys on the team like Bilal, who's trying to get going, and he can't find any space to operate because he can't really create for himself a whole bunch. And he looks like he's the smartest guy on the team, in all honesty. But I don't know. The Wizards stink. They didn't win a single game in November, and I don't know. I don't know what to do with this team. I want them to rebrand. I don't like the name the Wizards. I want them to just like be sold to someone else. I want them to have better management. I just feel bad for these players, man. I feel like the rookies on this team just have no shot at finding success. And so I don't know. It's disappointing. But anyway, let's go talk about the rookies. All right, rookie report time. As you guys know, this is ordered in terms of points per game. We found that that's the strongest indicator of who's going to win rookie of the year or whatever. And we've got a little bit of player movement. So Jared McCain, while hasn't been quite as hot as he was like for a couple weeks there, like he's slowing down just a little bit. Teams are starting to key in on him a little bit more, it seems. And I feel like he's turning the ball over quite a bit more, honestly, as well. But Jared McCain still top of the list. He probably still is rookie of the year at this point. Dalton Connect is probably probably my favorite rookie at this point this season. He's even exceeded my expectations. He is a clear starter for the Lakers at this point, and honestly, one of their better players. It seems like he really understands the system. Not only is he just like spacing for the team really, really well, but he cuts when he's supposed to. He seems like he just gets the offense. Seems really smart defensively. I've been pretty happy with him overall. And like, you just look at the percentages, right? He's one of the few rookies that's actually out there, like getting a ton of shots up and everything, right? And he's being efficient. Like, he just looks like a good NBA player at this point. So shout out Dalton Connect, man. I mean, it's not easy to play next to like guys like LeBron and AD either. Like, they have high expectations of you. So it's been awesome to see that. He's probably, if I had to vote for rookie of the year, it'd be Connect, but that's where I'm at right now. Jalen Wells continues to impress me as well, getting you 12-ish points a game. He's been a plus for them defensively. He's shooting the three ball really, really well. He's even had a couple games where he's really shot up there in points. So Jalen Wells, what a surprise. I was not too familiar with your game coming in. I watched some film on you. Didn't think anything too crazy of it, but hey, you showed me. Reese Shea, I don't know. I haven't really enjoyed watching him as of late. I still like his skill set and ability. I just feel like the Hawks have them doing weird things. I feel like the Hawks are another team that just like don't run anything offensively, and it makes me so mad to watch. Like, you've got this guy in Trae Young that you could be so dynamic with in different ways, and they just don't do anything with it. So Reese Shea, he's been kind of whatever. He's still getting double-digit points and everything. He is starting. Does he really deserve to start? No. DeAndre Hunter's been a lot better than him this season, but they're playing him anyway. So do I think he's going to be like a bad player for forever? No. I think he's I think he's going to be a good NBA player. It's just, it hasn't been as good as what I expected this year. Stephon Castle is the new one in the top 5 here. He basically just gets to take shots at this point because nobody else on the team really wants to. It's just him and Wemby kind of doing things. But Stephon Castle at the same time has been exactly what I expected him to be coming into the NBA, because he could do everything but shoot. We said that. Stupid good athlete. He's got really good instincts for the game. Seems really smart, really mature. The Spurs took him because he's a culture fit, and we'll figure out how to make it work. He's certainly done that. The turnovers are still a little bit high, but he's a young guard, right? So we expect that. And the field goal percentages, at least in the last 3 weeks, it has been league average, which if you get that out of Stephon Castle, I feel pretty good about that, right? I do think that it'll be interesting to see, like, if Vassell comes back at some point, right? Like, where do the minutes go for him? Do they try to play him as well? Because CP3 has been a nice thing for them this season, and I can't imagine playing Vassell and, like, Castle together. I don't know. That's where I struggle to see things a little bit more, and you're not convincing me that Stephon Castle's a better player than, like, Devin Vassell at this point. You're just incorrect about that. But Stephon Castle has been fun this season. Like, it's been cool to see. He's had some really nice moments for them, especially defensively. He's been a big impact for them, right? We know that he can do all that stuff. These UConn guys are super, super smart. So glad to see he's finding success. Edey still kind of, is what it is. Let's talk about all 3 of the Wizards rookies. I just feel bad for them, right? They have no shot at success. Alex Sarr's basically playing power forward for them half the time now with Valanciunas, and he's just kind of spacing, and they're making him take a ton of threes, and it's like, okay, you've got this guy that he can literally run up and down the court with the basketball in a coordinated way at 7 feet tall, and this is what you're having him doing. It's like what the Bulls did to Lauri Markkanen early in his career, except nobody thought Sarr was going to come in and splash it from 3 like Lowry. So I don't know. I don't understand what the Wizards are doing with this guy. It doesn't make sense to me. Bub Carrington, he's just a young point guard, right? I'd like to think having Brogdon on the floor will make his job a little easier, so we'll see from that. He's at least being intense defensively out there, and Sarr's been awesome defensively, by the way. If y'all haven't been paying attention, he's awesome defensively. So really, he's right in line with expectations. It's just I feel bad for him. Keyshawn George, I don't know. I don't really like watching George play right now. I don't feel like he can create at an NBA level at the way that I want. I feel like he takes bad shots. I don't think he's a good enough shooter to warrant some of the things that he does on the court. So I don't know. I'm not as big on George. I hope he gets the chance though. And look, just playing for the Wizards is going to make it harder. Yves Missy has basically turned into their starter in New Orleans. That's awesome. He's beat out Daniel Tice at this point, and honestly, he's been solid overall. He's still a little bit like wonky movement wise, in my opinion, but for a rookie and basically what we thought he would be, he's there. And then we can look at some of the guys that are kind of creeping up. Tristan da Silva, again, finds himself in the position of like, hey, sometimes starter, sometimes not at this point, right? Looks competent out there. Wouldn't say that he's blowing anybody away, but like very competent. And as a rookie, we take that. That's awesome, right? Kyle Filipowski, again, he's getting a ton of minutes. Don't feel like he's actually doing a ton on the court, so that's it. We have our first undrafted player creeping into the top 15. We have Jamison Battle here for the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are just throwing like everybody out on the court. They have so many rookies that they just like throw out that are like low-level rookies as well, and they're just seeing what works. And so Jamison Battle, He can shoot threes. Good for him. He's like a new Matt Ryan. Love to see it. Ryan Dunn, we'll see if his numbers start to creep back up now that Beal and Durant are back. We'll see. And then I still don't know if it's Pell or Pele, but Larson for the Miami Heat. Cool. He hits threes and can handle the ball a little bit. Good for him. If we can take a look at some of the other rookies out there that don't fall into this, Reed Shepherd still doesn't get a ton of burn. He's pretty rough defensively on ball. I know some of you guys will be like, off ball, he gets a lot of tips and stuff. Yep, that's completely correct. Been a rough season for him overall, though. Hasn't quite been able to find his spot. I kind of figured it would take a while for him, though, so I'm not surprised. Ron Holland still looks pretty rough out there. He did have like one like solid game, I feel like, this week, but is what it is. To John Salon, he's taking those shots, man. Now that Grant Williams is out, he's out there, he's taking threes, he's starting to hit some of them, so I'll be curious to see if he finds himself in this category after like a couple more weeks. Donovan Klingen's hurt right now. Wouldn't be surprised if he can start like moving back up into this. I hope they just start him at points, but I think they're just probably going to play Ayton. Rob Dillingham, again, I advocated that he should get more minutes just because he'll at least get you some easy buckets in transition, if nothing else. He's going to try and spark the team he can create. Defensively, pretty rough, but we expected that. Cody Williams, we saw statistically is the worst offensive player in the NBA. Who's the second worst? It's the other Jazz rookie, Isaiah Collier. So, yeah. Sorry, Jazz fans, not a great trio of draft picks for you. Taking a look at just like the other lottery guys, Matas Buzelis, yeah, his game fluctuates, right? Like he can't create anything for himself at this point, but that's what I expected. So I don't know. He's trying really hard defensively. He cuts well. Cool. That's it. That's what I got for the rookies this week. Let's go look at Cup standings. All right, y'all, taking a look at the NBA Cup now. We're coming to the end of the qualifying rounds and everything. We're getting ready for like the actual like Cup itself, like what teams make it. We've got the Orlando Magic sitting here clearly at the top. Highest point differentiation. They're 3-0. They do play the New York Knicks still, who that's going to be a big game, right? That's just going to be a big one. So I'm very curious to see what happens with that. But the Magic have been really, really good in cup games. The Milwaukee Bucks have not only been finding some regular season success, but some cup success as well. They're looking like they're going to find themselves in the cup at this point. The Hawks have already clinched because they've played all 4 of their games. Funny enough, the only team they lost to was my Chicago Bulls, but looks like they're going to be in the cup. That's awesome. And then the Detroit Pistons. That's what I'm talking about. I told y'all we'd talk about the Pistons at some point. Pistons could be in the cup right now. The reason that they're ahead of the Knicks is the point differentiation here, so they're a plus 28. The Knicks are only a plus 15, which is just awesome, right? I'm really, really excited to see this. I'm hoping that the Pistons make it. I want to see a bad team get in. Like, the Pistons aren't as horrible as they were other years, but they're not a very good basketball team, and I want to see one of those teams make it into the cup. If we go over to the West, Houston Rockets already clinched. Good for them, right? I guess looking at like the rest of their group, it's just not possible for anyone else to catch them. So cool to see a young team in there. Warriors have been good this whole season, so good to see them in it. The Spurs are in it. I'd love to see Wemby in the cup, of course, right? And Stephon Castle as well. Show off some of the young talent in the NBA. Then we got the Mavericks, potentially the Suns as well, and obviously could be a couple other teams as well, but those are the teams we're looking at this point. So would I like to see like Luka? I don't know if Luka's going to be back in time for that, but the Mavericks are just a really fun team to watch. So I like this, right? Young team, interesting team, young team, just fun team in the Mavericks. We got a young team here. I don't know if I really want to see the Hawks, in all honesty. Not sure. I'm sorry, Hawks fans. I'm just not sure I want to see it. Bucks, sure. That could be a good way to springboard them in the Magic. Not the most fun team to watch in the world, but like what Franz has been doing recently, cool. So I just can't hate on them because they're just winning basketball games, right? So good for them. That's our cup update. I'll probably do some content around the cup when the playoffs actually start happening. And finally, we've got a standings update here. So looking at the Eastern Conference, Cleveland Cavaliers actually lost like 2 games in a row to the Atlanta Hawks. So they've started to lose a little bit of games. Ship's getting a little bit rocky. We'll see how they kind of start to settle things out. Celtics and Magic are kind of the next teams there. They've been winning. Celtics winning 7 in a row. Magic 5. The New York Knicks are the other team that's like starting to kind of put things together. When Brunson and Cat are on the court, good things happen. OG Anunoby's been really good for them recently. That's awesome. Miami Heat have crossed above 500. We now have 5 Eastern Conference teams above 500, which awesome, right? We're starting to see things kind of come back. It's actually 6. Excuse me, it's 6 now with the Bucks. So that's what I'm saying. Things kind of start to find their mean a little bit more. These are teams that you probably expect to see up here. So we'll see if the Bucks 6-game winning streak continues. The Hawks have been winning games recently, so good for them. The Pistons and Nets are both in it. The Pacers could do some things if they get going. I'm happy to see the Bulls falling out. The Hornets, The Hornets are just kind of like falling apart a little bit. I feel like they've collapsed a little bit from the beginning of the season. I don't know exactly what to attribute that to. I know LaMelo was like kind of hurt again or something, but I don't know. Like Brandon Ingram's taking like a lot of bad shots. So is Melo right now. It feels like Trey Mann doesn't get nearly as involved as he did at the beginning of the season. Raptors just have a bad roster. The Sixers can't keep healthy, and the Wizards are the worst team in basketball. So there you go. That's the East. Going over to the West, Thunder, very good at basketball. Surprise, surprise. Isaiah Hartenstein. If I were to go over to this, I bet you, how many games has Hartenstein played in? Is it 4? Where does he come into rebounds? Is it 3? Okay, yeah, so Hartenstein has played in 3 games this season. He would be at the top of the NBA for rebounding right now. He has been awesome for them. Let's go over to Hartenstein here. 14 points, 14 rebounds, 57% from the field, plus 12 for them. Big boost for them, right? Having him back. Rockets, hey, they're doing it, right? Amen Thompson's amazing. Tari Eason's amazing for them off the bench. Their starting lineup's quality. Fred VanVleet's starting to figure things out a little bit. Good for them. Memphis Grizzlies winning games with or without Ja Morant. Cool to see. Warriors maybe coming back to earth again. That's what I'm saying. Maybe regressing towards the mean. Wiggins and Curry, they've been awesome for them. Not quite sure where the rest of the offense is going. Where's Buddy Hield? Why isn't Buddy Hield getting as many minutes nowadays? I don't know. Mavericks, Mavericks could be at the top of the NBA right now, in all honesty. They've lost some close games to some really good teams, but they're starting to put it together with a 3-game win streak without Luka. Nuggets, just trying to survive with this roster that they have. Every single night, they just need someone different to help Jokic, so we'll see what happens with them. Phoenix Suns, we'll see if they can start to correct now that their guys are back. Lakers, trying to put anything together with that roster that they have. Clippers, if they start to fall off, will we see them start to sell? The Spurs are the 10 seed right now. We'll see if they can hold on to it. Timberwolves, again, for a team that was in the Western Conference Finals last year, they do not look good at all. So they do have really talented players, but can they figure it out? I don't know, because Finch hasn't really shown that he can put together a good offense yet, so I'm a little hesitant. The Kings, very underwhelming performance for me so far this year. I've been very surprised. Kevin Huerter has been bad for them. Keegan Murray has been bad for them this year. I'm saying bad. It's kind of like, I don't know. They're not like bad, but they're playing not great basketball, right? Like, you have a lot of good players though on this team, and like, it should be a pretty good group. You're missing probably a defensive center or something like that. You could probably use a backup point guard. It'd be nice if Devin Carter was playing. I feel like he would have been solid for them at this point, but is what it is, man. They're struggling a little bit. Portland Trailblazers are bad. Utah Jazz are bad. Pelicans, they're all hurt. So, is what it is. But that's the weekend that's the week update, y'all. I know this was a bit of a longer one. There were some bigger topics to talk about, and maybe I'll cover those in videos. If you guys want to see some videos where I go and I kind of tear down the Nets and the Bulls or something like that, let me know. I'm happy to do videos like that. But anyway, appreciate you guys as always, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. Bye.